going to be screwed over by Project 2025. It proposes a complete change to the disability rating scale, not to make it easier for veterans to get the care that they need, but to make it so much harder that they save billions of dollars. Where does that money come from? Veterans' pockets. They want to change it so you can't collect retirement and disability at the same time. So if you stayed in long enough to get retired and were also disabled in the process, too bad. What do you think's going to happen to disabled people who already make up an overwhelming amount of the homeless population when you cut their benefits? Not to mention the Supreme Court just made it legal to say you're not allowed to sleep outside. Oh, we'll just get another job. Well, they're trying to cut the secondary education benefits too. They're trying to cut BAH, basic housing allowance, so any amount of the money that doesn't directly go to housing, they take back. They're trying to privatize TRICARE, the military's insurance, and they want to further privatize the VA, getting rid of 2 of the lower levels of veterans, like, hey, you broke both your legs jumping out of an airplane? Ah, too bad. You should have got shot. You better have it on camera when you do, because you're definitely not going to convince the civilian contractor who does all the disability claims now. They are proudly saying that they intend to steal $160 billion from veterans in active duty by 2032. If you don't care about the military, well, have fun being drafted, because what do you think's going to happen to recruitment and retention when they get rid of all the benefits? Not to mention the rest of Project 2025, which will also affect you in whatever profession you have, unless that profession is billionaire. If you think this is fear-mongering, go read it for yourself. They're so confident, they put it on the internet, while simultaneously bragging that they're committing a second American Revolution. Once again spending the blood of veterans, only this time against their will. Vote this down.
Well, that was a little subtle. Had to open you up and grab you. That's a veteran talking about Project 2025. Good morning or afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Fred Wellman. I'm a retired Lieutenant Colonel from the United States Army, 20 years of service, the old 101st Airborne. Welcome to On the Line with VoteVets. I'm your host today for a conversation on Project 2025, its impact on the military, its impact on veterans. Now, I know you've heard a lot about Project 2025 already. You've seen the denials from the Trump administration that's not real. They're not connected to it. How much are they denying it? I mean, look at what Secretary Pete Buttigieg posted online just yesterday. Yeah, they're sending out mailers, okay, actual direct mail to people's houses denying he's part of Project 2025 and he has nothing to do with it. It's not his real agenda. I mean, it's kind of amazing when they actually send it to the Secretary of Transportation's actual house to try and convince you it's not real. But we know it is, right? The fact is Project 2025, run by the Heritage Foundation, backed by $25 million in dark money, over 80, 90 groups signed on as partners. They're actively recruiting MAGA people who've been vetted to come join the government. There's a million aspects to this thing. It's a 900-page book. And it's kind of fun. They're trying to deny it now when they actually published a book, okay, online. So speaking of Secretary Buttigieg, I actually had a chance to talk to him about this. We had a VoteVets event at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, and I was able to pull Secretary Pete aside. There's a little noise in the background, but this is what I asked about, what's going on with these things.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting. Project 2025 has become a scandal. Yeah. And it's the only time I've seen a scandal that's just a party putting out their policies. They just made the mistake of writing it down. Right? But that includes a lot of really problematic things for veterans. The changes to the VA, a lot of people would risk losing their health care. And then just the slash and burn approach they have to the entire civilian workforce, including a civilian workforce that's made up of so many veterans. So veterans would be made worse off both as veterans and in further public service. And that's just one of many things about that Project 2025 vision.
Yeah, it's a lot in there, a lot to discuss between the military effects on the DoD, between the effects on the Department of Veterans Affairs, and then the larger effects on the larger government and the budget cuts. Schedule F, you've heard about, you'll hear a lot about this conversation. So I want to bring in a few experts. The most important thing is we've been on this for a while at VoteVets. And before I get to our conversation, we actually produced a video starring one of our guests today, Major General Paul Eaton, retired from the United States Army. This video is up on our YouTube channel. Let me see if I can get it up so you guys see it. Again, this is about the military aspects of Project 2025 and the very problematic things that are in there. It's just not a little thing. There's a lot of really big things in there. And well, check it out.
Project 2025. Project 2025. Deeper look at Project 2025.
You've probably heard about Project 2025, the 900-page manifesto drawn up by Donald Trump's MAGA allies to radically remake our country. It's worth knowing about as you think about your vote, because this election is not just a choice of candidates. It's really a choice of the kind of country you would like to live in. Project 2025 is the MAGA Republican playbook to go around the Constitution, the Congress, and the courts to take total control of our government, using it to enforce their ideology on our lives. The thing is, it's eminently doable. They've been planning this for years, and we'll be ready to go on day one should Donald Trump be elected. Let's look a little deeper at a section that's been overlooked in the media. Their plan to radically remake our military. If one were to write a credible roadmap to transform our democracy into a dictatorship, this is what it would look like. And a big part of that is to turn the most effective, professional, and nonpartisan fighting machine that the world has ever seen into Trump's MAGA military force, ready, willing, and able to deploy against our fellow citizens should Trump issue an illegal order. It achieves this goal in 4 steps. First, it corruptly uses the power of the presidency to fire flag officers, generals, admirals, and so on, who they deem not sufficiently loyal to Trump. Second, it stops promoting anyone in the military who doesn't pledge allegiance to their agenda. Third, it obliterates military readiness programs that ensure our diverse forces know how to work together. Fourth, it actively recruits troops who may have been targeted for radicalization by white supremacists. And then, it enables the use of the Insurrection Act to deploy the military inside the country against political opponents, protesters, or just about anyone Donald Trump chooses. That's a lot. So let's walk through it. The first step in creating a military that is loyal to Trump and carries out whatever order Trump gives, legal or not, is to remove all obstacles at the top. That means clearing out generals, admirals, and others who would refuse to carry out illegal orders in accordance with the Constitution. Trump himself has made it clear.
I would fire them. You can't have woke military.
Project 2025 calls troops who follow the Constitution Marxist and says they are Barack Obama's General Officer Corps. Well, I served in uniform for over 30 years, following my father's footsteps, and my family still serves today. I can assure you that there aren't many Marxists in the military. So who are they looking to fire? Anyone who is loyal to the Constitution above all. Once they clear out top ranks, they will only promote MAGA loyalists. They falsely claim that promotions under previous administrations were illegitimate, and that the antidote is to freeze promotions, even if people are in line and qualified, unless they are MAGA loyalists. That clears way for Trump to move his hand-picked people into key military leadership positions in acting roles, sidestepping any Senate confirmation vote. And who might he choose? We're talking about people like disgraced retired Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, who pled guilty to lying to the FBI in a Russian influence case, but was pardoned by Trump.
General Flynn, he's some general, he's some man. He took abuse like nobody could have handled, and he came out bigger, better, stronger than ever before. We love him. He's a leader. And you just stay wealthy and healthy and well and everything. I want you to have great lives in general. You just have to stay healthy because we're bringing you back. We're going to bring you back.
We're talking about retired Brigadier General Don Bolduc, a 2020 election denier who called for abolishing the FBI. Project 2025 then radically changes the culture of service. The report spills a lot of ink falsely arguing that the military spends most of its time on social engineering, Marxist indoctrination, critical race theory, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. It bashes transgender service members and kicks them out of the military. Anyone who has worn the country's uniform knows there is no Marxist indoctrination or social engineering going on. So what are they talking about? They're referring to programs that train our diverse armed forces how to respect each other and work together. This is key to unit cohesion and readiness. It's really a matter of life and death on the battlefield. They would abolish this training in order to remake a diverse fighting force into a political, homogenous MAGA military. Finally, Project 2025 curiously stresses the need to reward 8,400 troops who were discharged for refusing orders to be vaccinated against COVID during the pandemic. It rewards them with back pay and full restoration of rank to lure them back. Wonder why? Well, far-right conspiracy groups and white nationalists have spent years targeting people who are anti-vaccine to recruit and radicalize. They bury them in anti-government propaganda and MAGA conspiracy theories. These are not people you want to hand a military weapon to and hope for the best. So, how might President Trump use this MAGA military? Well, we don't have to guess. Think back to when he ordered his staff to deploy the military to shoot protesters demanding justice for George Floyd's murder. Just shoot them in the legs, he ordered. Unfortunately, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and his Secretary of Defense rightfully told him no.
What specifically was he suggesting that the U.S. military should do to these protesters?
He says, can't you just shoot them? Just shoot them in the legs or something. And he's suggesting that that's what we should do, that we should bring in the troops and shoot the protesters.
Donald Trump learned that when people are loyal to the rule of law and the U.S. Constitution, they can stop him. He won't make that mistake again. Project 2025's own architect has warned us that violence may be used against anyone who gets in their way.
We are going to win. We're in the process of taking this country back. We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
From shooting Americans in the street if they protest, to sending the military door to door looking for immigrants to round up, to putting troops into domestic law enforcement roles akin to martial law, Project 2025 would empower all of Trump's worst instincts. The good news is the choice is in our hands. Your vote this fall makes the difference. And it's not just about the top of the ticket. We need to vote for candidates up and down the ballot who will block Project 2025 from ever becoming our nightmare reality. And we need to talk about it with friends, family, and neighbors. That's how we hold fast to an America where democracy rings free, where the people rule and the elected serve, where the government values our rights and protects our freedoms. And an America that continues to say, if you're willing and able to serve, there is a place for you in our armed forces. A military that still swears an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. It's up to us. Thank you.
Great video, well produced by our VoteVets. Proud to do that for you. There'll be more coming on that topic. So without further ado, I thought I'd bring in a few folks. Hopefully we can all hear each other. Live streams are fun. I think Mike Lavigne was with us. Sergeant Major Mike Lavigne joined us. I think last time, Mike, we did this the first time, I literally disappeared at one point and you took over. I appreciate that.
It's a next man up kind of a thing, Fred.
There you go. Retired General Paul Eaton, in his usual subtle way, just saying, Paul. Sir, can you hear us loud and clear? Are you with us?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Good to go, sir.
Okay, great.
Good to go. Good to have you.
Thanks, Fred.
And I'll go ahead and add our friend Kayla Williams. Kayla, we were laughing. Kayla's like, I'll just put Sergeant. Well, Kayla is also the Assistant Secretary of the VA. So let's not. So Kayla is also joining us. You got nothing but Army again. At some point, Solz is going to figure out, and the rest of the VoteVets teams, I keep having Army-only panels, but let's not tell them anytime soon. Nonetheless, sir, we're going to start with you because, this was, you had narrated that video. I thought we just, in this conversation, talk about the military aspects and then talk about the veterans impact. Mike done a lot of this work on this, discussing as well. Sir, you did that video. And all those things, 5 things, what makes your heart, what makes you, your heart as a former general officer kind of run cold the most when you look at it?
Fred, great question. And it's the fealty oath. It's the demand that everybody be loyal to the President of the United States instead of to the Constitution of the United States. And it is that particular instruction that Project 2025 puts out that is troubling. We have all surrounded ourselves with all types of citizens from throughout the United States, but we have one common aspect, and that's the oath that we take when we first come into the service. And, oh, by the way, it's the same oath that, somewhat modified, that we asked the President of the United States to take on his inauguration day. So that's the worst aspect of the whole plan.
Yeah, it really does. For those who haven't served in our audience, we have a lot. It's so key. I mean, we talk about our oath a lot, right? And you actually retake that oath every time you get promoted, don't you, sir?
Indeed. And I've seen people try to memorize it. You know, it's, stage fright happens. And so we even saw it with President Obama when he had to retake his oath with John Roberts, because it is absolute. So best you have that card right in front of you and read from it.
And it reminds us, and we're taught as cadets, and we're taught at basic training as enlisted men. We have both enlisted and officers in this group. I think that is Matt Shaka too. I think one that gets me going, sir, a lot is the idea of using the military as a police force. You know, we've talked about that a lot. That, you know, we had the Posse Comitatus Act, we've got law. Hell, it's a foundational principle of our government and our country. We had a revolution because they stationed British troops in our houses, right? I mean, it goes back to people talk about being originalist. The originalist, one of the most original thing is troops being stationed in our homes, the use of troops for domestic law enforcement. There's a clear indication, and they've set it out right. They want to put in the Insurrection Act, right? And they're going to use troops to go out and actually suppress freedom of speech, aren't they?
Fred, that's their plan. And you mentioned the Insurrection Act. With the Supreme Court that we've got right now, that will sail through unchallenged. And it would cause every man and woman in the armed forces of the United States to have to decide whether or not they're going to follow an order that they really can't stomach. And you only get to fall on your sword once, and it will be enlightening to see how many of our men and women choose to simply, sir, I cannot do that. We saw it with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and we've already cover the fact that they're going to hire loyalists who are not going to challenge orders that are terrible for the armed forces.
Yeah, and Mike, you're a former sergeant major and NCO. The idea of you were infantry, you started off as an infantryman, right? So, Mike, when you go out, I mean, imagine getting that order to take your troops and actually arrest or knock down the doors of American citizens. It's a pretty chilling thought, isn't it, as an NCO?
Yeah, and honestly, even as a basic training drill sergeant at Fort Benning, at the height of the surge, we made it very clear to infantry trainees and basic trainees going through the pipeline at Fort Benning what constituted a legal order and what was not a legal order. And what you're going to find is if this influx of loyalists or this culling of people who are loyal to the Constitution and not one man actually takes place, you're going to hear a lot more "yes, sir" instead of "no, sir, that is not a lawful order." And that's the terrifying part, where you start to get people who don't do the moral calculus in their head to determine if it's right or wrong. They're loyal to the man, they're loyal to the cause, and they'll follow the order if given.
Oh, it's kind of scary. We did see a recent report that 2 National Guard NCOs from Virginia have been running a militia for several years, almost openly. It is kind of scary. We had the movie War Game. I was in War Game, and that's our scariest scenario. And, I was an somebody actually mentioned the War Game. I think we showed it at the DNC. I was on the panel there in our comments here, and it was interesting that one of your peers at the end, I won't name him, Joe McCaffrey, at the end, Paul said, he's not worried about that. He think the troops will do the right thing. And myself and Chris Goldsmith were kind of sitting there. There's actually a lovely scene. They zoom in on Chris Goldsmith's hand as he's sort of gripping in the arm of his chair. No, actually, that story proves it. We do have some scary. There is scary that there are young men and women. And Mike, you say it. I tell people a lot, Mike, that I can't get rid of 18 years of upbringing or opinions or beliefs in 8 weeks of basic training, right? It's like you can train a lot of things, but you can't change who a person is.
But it's also, you have to think about sort of the cultural immersion that happens when you make that bridge from civilian to soldier. It isn't just about the inculcation of Army values, learning how to do Army warrior tasks and battle drills and things like that. It's about your day-to-day with the people you're surrounded with, the people that are showing by word and deed they know what the right thing to do and they do the right thing. And I would just argue that it doesn't really matter how you grow up. What matters is if you are willing to take in the culture.
Yeah.
If you're willing to accept I won't call it programming, but some people could call it programming. If you buy into the program, what the Army offers, I would argue that it really does change your outlook on life. I mean, I grew up in rural upstate New York, and probably one of the whitest counties in the state, and I was thrown into sort of this melting pot of diversity with different people and different backgrounds that came from all over the country, different socioeconomic circumstances, and it changed the way I looked at the world. And you would hope that everyone else has a similar experience. But I think the key right now is and you refer back to the guy in the panel who said, or General McCaffrey, who had said he wasn't worried. I would say current state right now, I'm not terribly worried about it either. Okay. Laugh at me if you want. I would be really worried in a post-Project 2025 world where we see the culling of the General Officer Corps to remove everyone that isn't a loyalist. Perhaps even doing recalls by exception for general officers who have retired. I mean, they've got a list, every single one of these letters in support of President Trump by flag and general officers, an influx of that population back in. And then again, as Project 2025 lays out in very, very harrowing detail, frankly, you fire the people that you don't want. You put acting people into the positions that don't require a Senate confirmation, and you move forward. And it's terrifying what that could look like on the far side.
And I want to circle. We've been going a little bit. Kayla's been very patiently waiting. By the way, in the middle of band fundraising. This is how great Kayla is, you guys. She's really in the middle of driving kids around for band fundraising, and she took a minute to talk to us. So I wanted to get to Kayla. Maybe we can let her go. I want to get back to you, sir, later about talk about this diversity and why it matters. But Kayla, the banner right now talks about Schedule F and the fire. You were Assistant Secretary at the VA. This is pretty impactful on the VA, isn't it? There's some big things in here about the VA. They have a whole chapter on just the VA alone, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And, some of the things that I think are really concerning, you mentioned the desire to fire employees. They want to cut the size of the federal government by about 1 million folks. 30% of federal employees are veterans. So we're talking about firing over 300,000 veterans, which to me sounds like a terrible idea and not how you show that you respect those who have honorably served our country. They're talking about trying to speed up reviews of what conditions are rated for when you're looking at service connected. So it gets a little wonky. It's in the weeds. I'll put everyone to sleep if I really dig into it, but it's called the VASR D. It's VA's schedule of rating disabilities. We do this, we update this periodically in a really transparent process. You post things in the Federal Register. Everybody has a chance to weigh in. This is something that we want, an accountable, a transparent government. And they want to try to figure out how to speed that up, make it faster when they're making changes, because they want to save money on the backs of our veterans. Wow. And they have said in Project 2025, they want to do that for everyone moving forward. And maybe make changes for those who already have ratings. That's a big flag. They're not willing to be completely clear on what that means. Does that mean that my spouse who sustained a penetrating traumatic brain injury might suddenly see his disability rating cut? Does that mean that I might suddenly see it cut? They don't make an assurance. They won't make it clear. They use this real fuzzy language so they could get away with a lot. The other thing I'm going to say that I'm really nervous about is the language they use in there about some of the care that is available, for example, to women. They say, oh, well, that's not for service-connected conditions. That's a big flag. Right. Are you saying that VA should only exist to cover service-connected conditions? What does that mean? That my spouse would be able to go there only for things related to his traumatic brain injury? And if he has some other condition, he has to go see a different doctor who can't see his VA medical records? We're looking at duplicative tests. We're looking at providers who don't know what conditions you're being seen for in what system of care. That's not how you get healthy people. what I want to emphasize is that VA treats people, not conditions. People, not conditions. But under Project 2025, they want to force VA to only treat specific conditions, not the whole person. And that's not the kind of care that I want to get.
That's such a great perspective. That's why I wanted you here. You know, and there's another piece that is really, it sounds, the thing about Project 25 that always struck me, you guys, is how it sounds so bland. It's 999 pages of very you know, I know we've been saying Google Project 2025, read it, but you guys, we were all in the government for a long time. You know, it's like it's written in government bureaucracy. So it's like, you know, it puts you to sleep. But there's some scary shit in there. I mean, one of them that seems so about VA is they want to make the same standards of care for VA doctors as military doctors. In other words, military doctors have to see X number of patients per day, and they want, without question, VA doctors see many less. And there's something nefarious about that, isn't there, Kayla? Why does that sound so no big deal that we're going to make them see more people? Why is that so wrong when as far as perceptions of VA?
Yeah, totally. So think about being on active duty. You're young, you're healthy. You had to be healthy enough to join, right?
Right.
So I go on sick call because I had a cold. I go on sick call and I'm getting like some medication, right? Like, hey, I need a cold pack so that I can get some medicine for my cold. That's a super quick appointment. Oh, make sure you don't have strep, send you on your way. When we think about who's using VA, the VA population skews older, sicker, and has a really heavier healthcare burden. We are likely to have more conditions. My favorite thing about going to VA is that when I go in, my doctor spends as much time as they need to cover all of my conditions. Instead of in the civilian sector, it was like, get in here, we're going to swab you for strep, send you on your way. No, my VA doctor is like, what do you need to take care of? Let's spend as long as we can. To try to force VA to squeeze in patients as fast as possible is an absolute mistake. We need to treat the whole person.
Right. And the average age in the Army is about, I think, 20 or 25, 20, 19. The average age of a veteran of the VA is in the 60s. These are totally different animals. There's a great question here that by the way, thanks, Patrick. That was my next question. They talk about
I'll touch back on in a few.
I'll go get out of here. So Patrick asked us about concurrent receipt and what that means. So what they are talking about doing is getting rid of concurrent receipt. And if you guys understand is I'm the perfect example. I think all the gentlemen on this, the three of gentlemen on this, we're retired from the military. Right now, once you reach a 90% disability rate or 50% disability rating, we get both our military retirement and our VA disability. Below 50% right now, it's called concurrent receipt. So for every dollar you get from the VA, tax-free, by the way, it reduces your military retirement. Does that make sense? So you'll never get more than you would have gotten as a military retiree, whatever rank you retired from. What they would do for those of us, and look, once you reach 100% disabled, there's reasons, okay? PTSD, loss of limbs, I mean, very serious things usually is why you're 100%. Right now, we're able to maintain both our military retirement and our VA disability. They want to get rid of that. And that sounds like, again, such a reasonable thing. Why are we paying these people double? Because my disability is not my retirement. I get retirement because I served and sacrificed for 22 years, right? Right, General Eaton, right, Paul?
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's another insidious thing that's in there. Now, one of the other things we've seen is they're being very careful to keep numbers out of it, aren't they, sir? I mean, they're very, very clever. It's like they don't want numbers actually in Project 2025. But we actually know the secret because Heritage also issues a budget proposal every year, and their budget proposal for 2023, Kayla's perfect timing. Kayla's back again with kids. You want to join us, Kayla? Hi guys. Kayla, we're
no
just
problem.
Getting ready.
Okay, let's
I love
blur out any children's faces.
No, we love it. It's a family show. Kayla, I was getting ready to talk about these budget proposals that you and I talked about earlier that kind of give away the game. Now, we want to do a caveat here for everybody watching. These are not the numbers from Project 2025. They're from Heritage Foundation's actual budget they propose each year. But you're going to recognize the titles of each of these budget proposals because they're the exact same thing they put into Project 2025, right, Kayla?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And again, we are looking at a philosophical belief that government is bad, that the private sector is better. They want to push vets out into the community where they will be seeing providers that have no military cultural competence and are less likely to use evidence-based care but are charging more money. They want to eliminate concurrent receipt, as you mentioned. What's interesting here is that most of the major veteran serving organizations, their number one legislative priority right now is actually to expand the ability of veterans to get concurrent receipt under the Richard Starr Act, because there are folks who have not served 20 full years. If you get injured in Iraq, Afghanistan, anywhere that you're serving, we have folks in other places right now as well. If you get injured and then have to leave the military because of your medical disability, you may fall into this like weird situation where you are unable to get both your VA disability and your DoD disability compensation. The VSOs want to expand that and say, hey, these are two separate pots of money. They're dealing with two separate things. And we're looking at these folks on the other side who are trying to nickel and dime veterans who have been injured, serving and supporting our country. They want to sacrifice veterans on the altar of small government. And that's not what I that's not what I signed up to support and defend. I believe that we have a national commitment to our veterans and their families, caregivers, and survivors. We should be focused on how we can improve and enhance and expand that support, and not how we can trim it and find every little tiny way that we can nickel and dime people to balance the budget on the backs of veterans.
Hey, Fred, if you really want to see Kayla get fired up, now ask about community care and just stand back.
Stand back.
Seriously, it's a beautiful thing. And I'm putting you on the spot, Kayla, but woo!
Yeah, they want to increase, they want to put more veterans out. And then I want to transition back to General Eaton. Explain the community care. Again, another thing that sounds so reasonable, like veterans shouldn't have to wait in line at VA. They should be able to go out to a local community. But what's the real nefarious part of the community care?
Well, the funny thing is they say they want to make it so that vets don't have to wait in line by letting us go to community care. Wait times aren't faster in the community.
Right.
I ask your friends how long they have to wait to get a specialty appointment. Wait times are not faster if you go to the community. They want to let veterans go out into the community for care where they get telehealth, because there's no local community providers either. So they're getting telehealth from some community provider who doesn't know anything about the military, has never heard of things like military sexual trauma, has no understanding of toxic exposures and what we were forced to breathe in with burn pits, or Vietnam veterans with Agent Orange. They have no idea how to provide evidence-based treatments for post-traumatic stress disorder. So they want to force us to go out into the community, even when we have better, higher quality, more evidence-based, more culturally competent, and cheaper to the government care available. It's not because they care about veterans. It's just because they want to privatize things. They want to let rich people get even richer while pushing us into a worse system of care. Look up the recent results. When you compare VA hospitals to other hospitals under the same exact standards that CMS has done recently, VA is outperforming non-VA facilities. They get higher satisfaction scores from patients. So you want to try to force veterans to go and get worse care in the community just because it's going to make some other people richer. This is not what is being suggested because it's the best thing for veterans. It's being done to try to shrink the government. It's being done to try to get more of our tax dollars into lining other people's pockets, not trying to support veterans. And in Project 2025, they straight up lie and claim that the Biden administration is refusing to allow people to use community care, while the community care budget has continued to tick up and up and up, as it is actually, being utilized more heavily. They straight up lie and say that everybody in the VA central office is teleworking. That is not true. They're just trying to get away with repeating lies over and over and thinking that we won't notice.
I love it. Thanks, Kayla. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to scratch this over to General Eaton. If you want to get out, go get some band money. Good luck with the uniforms. And we appreciate you just taking the time out of your obviously busy Saturday to hang out with us. And by the way, you guys are going to see a lot more Kayla. You're going to see a lot more Kayla because we haven't even talked about women's health care. And that's right. So see you soon, Kayla. Thanks. Good luck today.
Take care, Kayla.
So, sir, there's a lot in there, right? And you've led soldiers your entire adult life, like all of us. You've seen, like, one of the things I want to and it does go to the VA part of this too, is that number 3. Of course, obviously one of the big Republican things as enemies is DEI or any kind of, but you served your entire adult life from when I think you were commissioned in the 70s, right, sir? So
Correct, 72.
The power of can you explain to especially our civilian guests, why diversity matters, right? It's the hallmark of what we do, isn't it?
So I'm going to typically talk Black soldiers and white soldiers. And when Harry Truman integrated the Armed Forces of the United States back in 1947, I think was the year, we became a force that basically became an American armed forces, and where everybody was allowed to serve to the degree that they could. And I had the opportunity to have 2 Black general officers as my bosses. A 3-star named Cal Waller out at 1st U.S. Corps, and Larry Ellis as the commander of the 1st Armored Division. Yeah. And those 2 went to historically Black colleges. And over beers and in the different venues we were in, and typically we would ask them questions. And Larry Ellis was commissioned in 1968, went to Vietnam, and I cannot imagine some of the forces that were applied to his lifestyle in the Army. He went through a lot. He didn't wear it on his sleeve. We would coax it out of him. So that experience, coupled with the fact that I had a Black first sergeant back in 1974 when I commanded a rifle company. And thank God I did, because we were in Germany, race was an issue, and Charlie Wilson was absolutely critical to holding that company together. And we would involve Black soldiers, white soldiers in what we called then rep sessions. And it was basically to ferret out what was bothering folks, whites, Blacks, and how do you problem solve? We didn't have a whole lot of diversity training back then, but it just doesn't happen automatically.
Right.
You don't typically understand what you don't know. And, a prime example is, every general officer is required to go to diversity training at Patrick Air Force Base, where you're talking male, female integration. And the first question they asked was, how many of you guys know a female general officer who has children? There were no female general officers who had children, because when they were working their way up the ranks, they could not show weakness. They could not get pregnant. They could not take time off for the kids. And all this evolved simply because we had some very, very smart people says, this isn't going to happen automatically. We need to train it. And when you take that training out, then you start chipping away at the full integration of the armed forces of the United States.
It is truly the hallmark, and I came from a small town of Missouri, and my first roommate at West Point was a Black guy from Detroit. It taught me a lot, and you learn. And the fact is, we come from different places, and when you give an order to a soldier, even words are different sometimes, right? So it is a key, and this attack on that diversity is pretty scary. I agree, Mike. I'm going to get a chance to ask you the big money question I asked the chair earlier. Which part of all this scares you the most as a retired NCO?
I think that the parts we've already talked about is really the idea that serving general officers who are ostensibly chosen because of their abilities, their knowledge, their skills, their education, all of those categories would just get wiped for or in favor of whether or not they support Donald Trump. That's just terrifying. I think all of us have been exposed to people who have been promoted one step beyond their one step beyond their ability.
Some would argue that was one of the.
And I think if we saw that, if we saw this somehow happen with a second Trump administration, I think we're going to see a lot of that. I think we're going to see a lot of people that never should have been where they are, but they are where they are because they said they like the right guy. And to me, when you have the sons and daughters of America at your call, and speaking of sons, mine ships on the 28th of October to follow in my footsteps as a CMF 46 soldier, a public affairs guy. And it scares me the thought that by the time he comes out of training, he could be in a second Trump administration where the things that we've just been describing over the last 40 minutes would come to pass. And I do just want to say, I think the Army really messed up at some point when they stopped calling them rap sessions and started calling them sensing sessions. Because I never wanted to go to sensing sessions, but if you told me there was a rap session, I'm there.
Yeah. So I want to go to the last perspectives. For me, a lot of this, again, it's the loyalty oaths. It's the using the troops to kick down doors. A kid from Oklahoma doesn't necessarily know the nuances of the law, yet they don't get that kind of training. There's some really scary stuff in there for me. And then there's the scary stuff of using, again, taking money away from people who serve their country, trying to save money on the backs of those who have given so much already, and we're given a promise of lifetime care. I'll give you the final word, Joe. We didn't want to go too long on Saturday morning. People have got things to do, soccer practice to go, band. Paul, final thoughts before we let everybody go. What are the things? I guess this is the framing question. If you think about the folks who are watching this or watch it later, what's the most important thing they need to take away as they go forward as we approach the election in 2 months in reference to Project 2025 and our community, why it matters to the military and veterans?
So I'm going to tell you a story that happened to me when I was a 44-year-old brigade commander in Germany. I had a medic in one of my battalions, and the battalion was going to chop to the United Nations Border Command between Macedonia and Serbia. Basically an observed monitoring report along the border, basically, just kind of a peacekeeping exercise. Yeah. And the requirement was to wear the blue beret, wear the blue helmet. And I had a medic in the battalion assigned to the mission who, very good soldier. He was a specialist E4. He was a terrific soldier, great medic. And he had a father in Texas. He was raised in Texas. His father said, you can't wear that blue beret. It's just not an American thing to do. And an influencer. So here we have a great young soldier who said no to the blue beret. And he had influencers in Texas weighing in on the problem. Now, we had a lot of people vote for Mr. Trump. We had a lot of people who believe that he's the right guy to be the commander in chief. We've got a lot of guys out there, guys and gals, who can be distracted. They tend to be conservative, tend to be Republican voters, and they can be influenced to do the wrong thing, like my young specialist who was influenced by his father to do the wrong thing. We went through great trials to explain the presidential decision directive that authorized the use of this type chain of command, that it was actually a take on tactical command instead of full operational control or attached rules of engagement. So I disagree with General McCaffrey. I do believe that we will have great young Americans in the armed forces who will be influenced by what they hear, and we've got to work this very, very hard. And the training, the civics lessons that we can apply, the explanation of why we take the oath to support and defend our Constitution, all of this is critical to the good order and discipline of the armed forces of the United States. So we've got our work cut out for us, and all of us on this program today are profoundly involved, and I am very, very proud to be a part of it. Thank you very much for including me, Fred. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Paul. We appreciate you. Yeah, Mike. Thoughts for it? What should these folks know about this whole thing, and what can they do?
Yeah, I mean, really, this is about educating yourself. You mentioned before, this is written in sort of the bureaucratic style of policy language, and that can be pretty hard to penetrate. I think that's one of the good things about VoteVets is we're helping to translate some of this complicated policy language into easy to understand, gut punch type material. And the video that General Eaton was in is a perfect example of that. So it's a matter of educating yourself, educating your friends and family, and then being honest and reaching across to people who don't agree with you. We damage ourselves as an electorate when we confine ourselves to the silos where we find comfort in the ideas of people that think similarly to us. You got to step outside of your comfort zone a little bit and engage with people that think or feel or believe differently than you. And that doesn't make them your mortal enemy, right? We have to avoid this us versus them paradigm that we seem to be locked in for the last couple of years. The MAGA movement has damaged more families and friendships than I'm sure all of us have had some kind of impact on that. But it's incumbent on us to help develop a more educated and more aware electorate. And that starts with getting outside of your echo chamber. So talk to people about what this means. Talk to people about how this will impact, and then get out of the comments section, get off Twitter, and go vote.
That's great. Couldn't say it better. I appreciate both you gentlemen joining me. I'll let you go, and I'll finish up talking to our folks about what we do. And thanks for joining us. We'll have you back again, as you know, and I hope you come back. So thank you both.
Thanks, Fred.
So great conversation with smart people. I hope you. Thanks for joining us on such short notice on a Saturday morning. We want to, as you notice, we're kind of moving on the line with VoteVets around a bit in places. We just started the show about 2 weeks ago, and we're trying to see where you guys hang out and when you get there, and hopefully get different audience members who will join us. Now my big pitch, y'all. If you're here, if you're on Twitter or you're on YouTube, make sure you go to our YouTube channel, subscribe. You'll find all kinds. VoteVets puts a ton of videos up from actual veterans to help you learn more about our community and the passions we feel about these topics. We're going to put up more videos about Project 2025. You'll get notifications about live streams coming up when I get the wild hair or we decide there's breaking news. I'm going to warn you now, we are planning a post-debate spin room. We're going to get in that. We're going to have I'll be on vacation, but don't care. Hopefully I have good Wi-Fi. We're going to have a spin room talking about the issues. There's almost no question that with two veterans on the ticket, both Republican and Democrat, our world, our community, the military and veterans is going to come up in this conversation. Of course, we had the outrage at Arlington the other day. If you hadn't seen our live stream about that from a week ago, that's on the VoteVets channel. So this is my big push for you to go over to the VoteVets YouTube, subscribe, like us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, wherever you may be. And of course, the big one of them all, guys, if you could go to voteVets.org, give us a little money. We are investing in races across the country. We're investing in convincing people of the danger. We're talking about I'll get you a hint, there may be a bus tour about not suckers and losers. That might be out there. All that happens because of supporters like you who give us the money and where it goes to good causes, supporting our veterans, supporting the good veterans running for office. So with having said that, I'm going to remind you, I am Fred Wellman. I'm host of this show on the line with VoteVets. You're finding us on all our channels. I think even mine too today. It's the most important. Tell your friends, share, like. I could use some more likes, more emojis on here. Make sure you share, like, subscribe. That's so important for what we do and spreading the word as we get close to this election. We're 60 days out, folks. I mean, this is it. As Vice President nominee and Governor Walz says, we sleep when we die. 60 days is nothing. If any of you guys ever served in the military, right? 60 days, you're a short timer. You're damn near done, right? And so you can stand on your head for 60 days and get this done. Find a local race. Find someone who needs support. I guarantee you, as we speak, no matter where you are in America, as you're listening to me now, there is a race for office, be it congressional, state, president that needs your help, needs you to stand on the side of the road, wave a sign, needs you to phone call, needs you to knock doors. We are in this fight for our democracy. It's about what we believe as a country. It's not as simple as sending a tweet. We need you in the fight with us by our side. Go to votevets.org, learn more. You can join, get these cool t-shirts that we all wear. There's a lot of great swag on there for you to tell you everybody who you are, who you support. With that, I'm going to wrap us. Great conversation for 50 minutes on Saturday morning. Thank you for taking time. I know you're busy in your lives, joining us to have this conversation. Again, I'm Fred Wellman, host of On the Line with VoteVets. We'll see you again soon. Can't wait to see you for sure. Tuesday night at the debate. Join us right where you are right now to talk about the debate and what happened, what you just saw. With that, have a great weekend, y'all. Appreciate you.